The desperate message: the silence of space was broken by a signal that would change everything. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in the observation dome of Lunar Station, Earth's premier deep space communication facility, watching the endless dance of stars through the reinforced glass. At 35, she had dedicated her life to listening for signs of intelligent life beyond Earth's solar system. Tonight, after 12 years of searching, she would finally hear what she had been waiting for. The first indication came as a barely perceptible blip on her monitoring equipment. Sarah frowned, adjusting the sensitive receivers that could detect radio waves from across the galaxy. Most signals turned out to be natural phenomena, stellar radiation, or echoes from Earth's own communications. But this one was different. It pulsed with mathematical precision, carrying patterns that spoke of intelligence. Sarah's hands trembled as she began the analysis protocols. The signal originated from a star system designated as Kepler 442, approximately 1,200 light-years from Earth. As her computers processed the data, she realized the transmission was incredibly powerful, requiring massive energy output to reach across such vast distances. Whatever civilization sent this message was technologically advanced and desperate enough to broadcast across the galaxy. The breakthrough came after 6 hours of intensive work. The signal contained universal mathematical constants, prime number sequences, and geometric patterns that would be recognized by any intelligent species. But embedded within these basic concepts was something else entirely, a plea for help. Sarah's translation algorithms, refined over years of theoretical work, slowly decoded the message. What she read on her screen made her heart race with excitement and terror. The transmission came from a species calling themselves the Zephyrians, inhabitants of 3 worlds orbiting the star they called Golden Light. They were peaceful beings, advanced in science and philosophy, but completely unprepared for war. According to their message, a ruthless empire known as the Crimson Horde was sweeping across their region of the galaxy, conquering or destroying every world in their path. The Horde showed no mercy, enslaving useful populations and eliminating the rest. They had already consumed dozens of star systems, and now they were approaching Zephyrian space with a massive war fleet. The Zephyrians had calculated they had less than 6 months before the Crimson Horde reached their homeworld. They possessed advanced technology in fields like energy generation, space travel, and terraforming, but they had never developed weapons of war. Their ships were built for exploration and trade, not combat. They were calling out to anyone in the galaxy who might have the strength to help them survive. Sarah read the translated message 3 times before the full impact hit her. This was humanity's first contact with alien intelligence, and it was a cry for help from a dying civilization. She immediately secured her workstation and initiated emergency contact protocols with Earth Command. Within 2 hours, Sarah found herself in a secure video conference with Admiral Marcus Blake, the commanding officer of Earth's Solar Defense Force. Blake was a veteran of the Martian colonial wars and the asteroid belt pirate conflicts, a man whose weathered face bore the scars of humanity's expansion into space. His grey eyes studied Sarah's report with the intensity of a born warrior. Admiral Blake was not alone in the secure briefing room. General Patricia Hawkins, Earth's top military strategist, sat beside him along with Dr. James Wright, the director of xenobiology research. The room's holographic displays showed Sarah's translated message alongside star charts marking the location of the Zephyrian system. Blake read the message aloud, thinking through each word. The Zephyrians had included detailed information about their technology, their peaceful nature, and their complete lack of military capability. They offered to share their advanced scientific knowledge with any species willing to help defend them against the Crimson Horde. General Hawkins was the first to speak after Blake finished reading. She was a pragmatic woman who had spent her career preparing Earth for potential alien contact, though she had always assumed first contact would come through peaceful exploration rather than a request for military intervention. General Hawkins pointed out the risks involved in responding to the Zephyrian message. Earth had no intelligence about the Crimson Horde's capabilities or intentions. Intervening in an alien war could expose humanity's location to hostile forces, potentially bringing destruction to Earth itself. The logical choice might be to remain hidden and let the galaxy's conflicts resolve themselves. Dr. Wright offered a different perspective, focusing on the scientific implications. The Zephyrians claimed to have mastered technologies that Earth was still developing, including advanced energy sources and faster-than-light travel methods. Their knowledge could accelerate human technological progress by centuries. From a purely scientific standpoint, establishing contact with the Zephyrians could benefit all humanity. Admiral Blake listened to both arguments before making his recommendation. He had studied the message carefully, paying particular attention to the Zephyrians' description of the Crimson Horde. The enemy empire used tactics of overwhelming force and intimidation, conquering species that couldn't fight back. They were bullies on a galactic scale, and Blake had spent his career fighting bullies. More importantly, Blake recognized something that the others had missed. The Zephyrians had specifically mentioned that the Crimson Horde avoided confronting species from what they called harsh worlds, planets with dangerous environments that produce strong, adaptable inhabitants. Earth, with its extreme weather, tectonic activity, and deadly wildlife, definitely qualified as a harsh world. The Crimson Horde might be less likely to threaten Earth if they knew humans were capable warriors. The debate continued for hours, with representatives from Earth's major nations participating via secure links. Some argued for caution, others for bold action. President Maria Santos of the United Earth government ultimately made the decision that would shape humanity's future among the stars. Earth would respond to the Zephyrian distress call. Admiral Blake would command a battle fleet to the distant star system, carrying humanity's most advanced weapons and ships. It would be humanity's first interstellar war, fought for beings they had never met, in defense of principles that defined what it meant to be human. The next weeks were a blur of preparation and mobilization. Earth shipyards worked around the clock to prepare the Third Expeditionary Fleet for its historic mission. 50 warships were selected for the journey, including Admiral Blake's flagship, the UES Defiance, a massive dreadnought armed with humanity's most powerful weapons. The fleet represented the pinnacle of human military technology. Their ships were built for survival in the harsh environment of space, with redundant systems and armor designed to withstand impacts from asteroids and debris. Their weapons combined kinetic projectiles with energy beams, nuclear missiles, and exotic matter warheads that could crack planets. Captain Elena Rodriguez, Blake's second-in-command, oversaw the loading of specialized equipment for the mission. Her ships carried advanced sensors, communication arrays, and most importantly, adaptive combat protocols developed from humanity's history of warfare. Unlike species that had evolved on peaceful worlds, humans had spent millennia perfecting the art of war. The fleet's personnel were volunteers from Earth's military forces, carefully selected for their experience and adaptability. Many were veterans of conflicts in the outer solar system, where quick thinking and improvisation meant the difference between life and death. They understood that they were embarking on humanity's greatest adventure, with no guarantee of return. Commander Sarah Martinez led the fleet's intelligence division, analyzing every scrap of information about both the Zephyrians and the Crimson Horde. Her team worked to understand alien psychology and tactics, preparing contingency plans for scenarios they could barely imagine. They were venturing into the unknown, guided only by their determination to help a peaceful species facing extinction. Dr. Lisa Thompson, the fleet's chief xenobiologist, prepared for humanity's first face-to-face contact with alien life. Her team carried advanced translation protocols and cultural analysis programs, hoping to establish meaningful communication with the Zephyrians. They also prepared for the possibility of encountering the Crimson Horde, studying the limited data available about their biology and behavior. The day of departure arrived with ceremonies broadcast across Earth's communication networks. Families gathered to watch their loved ones embark on humanity's most ambitious mission. Children who had grown up hearing stories about the possibility of alien life were witnessing history as their parents prepared to travel to distant stars. Admiral Blake stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, looking out at the assembled fleet through the ship's viewing ports. Each vessel represented years of human ingenuity and determination, crewed by men and women who embodied the best qualities of their species. They were about to travel farther from home than any human had ever gone, carrying Earth's hopes and values to the stars. The hyperspace engines activated with a low hum that resonated through every ship in the fleet. Advanced gravitational manipulation technology, developed from decades of research and testing, opened doorways through spacetime itself. The stars outside began to blur and shift as the ships entered hyperspace, beginning their journey toward a distant star system where desperate aliens waited for salvation. As the fleet disappeared into the cosmic void, Earth's leaders could only wait and hope. They had committed their finest warriors to a cause that might determine humanity's place in the galaxy. The message from the Zephyrians had changed everything. transforming humanity from an isolated species into active participants in galactic affairs. Unknown to the humans racing through hyperspace, their decision would resonate far beyond the Zephyr system. Word of Earth's response was already spreading through hidden communication networks, reaching species that had long wondered about the mysterious signals emanating from the small blue world in a quiet corner of the galaxy. The children of Earth were coming to the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same. The battle for Zephyr Prime. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyr system to a scene of devastation that would haunt their memories forever. Admiral Blake stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching through the main view screen as the nightmare unfolded before them. The beautiful blue-green world of Zephyr Prime, described in the aliens' message as a paradise of crystal cities and floating gardens, was under siege. 200 massive warships of the Crimson Horde hung in orbit around the planet like metallic predators. Their hulls were deep red, almost black, covered in angular armor plating that spoke of a civilization built for conquest. Energy beams lanced down from their weapons arrays, striking the planet's surface in coordinated bombardments that lit up the atmosphere with each impact. Captain Rodriguez moved to Blake's side, her face grim as she studied the tactical displays. The Crimson Horde fleet was arranged in a perfect siege formation, systematically destroying population centers while smaller ships hunted down fleeing civilian vessels. It was a methodical extermination, carried out with the efficiency of a species that had performed this operation countless times before. The Zephyr defenders were pathetically outmatched. Their few remaining ships were clearly designed for exploration and peaceful travel, with elegant curves and transparent sections that would be beautiful in peace but were liabilities in war. They moved slowly, their weapons barely scratching the Horde's heavy armor, while return fire destroyed them in single hits. Commander Martinez's sensor arrays detected energy signatures unlike anything in human databases. The Crimson Horde's weapons technology was advanced, using focused plasma beams and gravitic disruptors that could tear apart molecular bonds. Their shields shimmered with exotic energies that deflected most conventional attacks. On paper, they should have been invincible against any force the humans could bring to bear. Blake studied the enemy formation with the eye of a veteran strategist. The Crimson Horde was powerful, but their tactics were predictable. They relied on overwhelming firepower and superior technology, arranged in rigid military formations that demonstrated their contempt for any possible resistance. They had never faced an enemy that refused to play by conventional rules. The human fleet remained at the system's edge, hidden by a dense asteroid field that masked their sensor signatures. Blake wanted to observe the enemy before revealing their presence. His ships were outnumbered 4-1, facing technology that was clearly more advanced than Earth's weapons. A direct assault would be suicide against such odds. Dr. Thompson's xenobiology team worked frantically to establish communication with the surviving Zephyrians. The universal translation protocols, tested countless times in simulation, finally achieved breakthrough contact with a research station on one of Zephyr Prime's moons. The voice that came through the communication system was melodious but filled with despair. The alien identified himself as Chief Scientist Orin Veltar, speaking for the Zephyrian High Council. His people had been fighting for 3 days against impossible odds, watching their civilization burn while their pleas for mercy were ignored. The Crimson Horde had offered the standard terms: complete surrender and slavery for the survivors, or total annihilation. Orin described his species with the detached precision of a scientist facing extinction. The Zephyrians were tall, graceful beings with pale blue skin and large eyes adapted for their homeworld's dim light. They had achieved interstellar travel through peaceful cooperation with other species, trading knowledge and resources rather than conquering territory. They had never encountered a species like the Crimson Horde. Blake introduced himself and the human fleet, explaining that Earth had received their distress call and traveled across the galaxy to help. The relief in Arun's voice was heartbreaking as he realized they were no longer alone. He quickly transmitted tactical data about the Crimson Horde, sharing everything his people had learned during their hopeless resistance. The enemy was led by War Marshal Krog Deathmar, a being whose name was spoken in terror across a dozen conquered systems. The Crimson Horde had evolved on a world of limited resources, developing a culture based on conquest and domination. They viewed peaceful species as weak and deserving of destruction, taking pride in their reputation as the galaxy's most ruthless empire. Their ships were heavily armored and shielded, designed to withstand massive punishment while delivering overwhelming firepower. Their tactics were straightforward: establish orbital superiority, demand surrender, and systematically destroy all resistance. They had never lost a major engagement because they only attacked targets they were certain to defeat. Blake absorbed this information while studying the enemy fleet through his ship's advanced sensors. The Crimson Horde's strength was also there. Weakness: they were too confident, too set in their ways. They expected their enemies to fight conventionally, meeting force with force in predictable battle lines. They had never faced humans. The Admiral opened a communication channel to War Marshal Krog, announcing the human fleet's presence with typical Earth directness. The alien commander appeared on the view screen as a massive reptilian creature covered in natural armor plating. His eyes glowed with predatory intelligence, and his voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. Krog studied the human ships with amusement, noting their smaller size and unfamiliar design. He had never heard of Earth or humans, dismissing them as another minor species attempting to interfere with Horde operations. He offered Blake the same terms given to all opposition: immediate withdrawal or destruction alongside the Zephyrians. Blake's response surprised everyone listening. Instead of negotiating or threatening, he simply asked Krog a question: had the War Marshal ever fought a Deathworld species? The alien commander paused, his amusement fading as he considered the implications. Deathworld species were rare and dangerous, evolved on planets so hostile that survival required exceptional adaptability and aggression. The human admiral explained that Earth was indeed a Deathworld, a planet where ice ages and asteroid impacts regularly reset evolution, where predators and natural disasters had forged humanity into the ultimate survivors. Humans had not evolved on a safe world like most galactic civilizations. They were the products of 4 billion years of warfare against their own environment. Krog's confidence wavered slightly, but his pride would not allow him to back down from what he saw as an inferior force. He gave Blake 1 hour to withdraw his fleet, after which the humans would share the Zephyrians' fate. The War Marshal cut the communication, ordering his ships to prepare for battle against this new enemy. Blake used the hour to position his fleet according to a battle plan that would have seemed insane to any conventional military strategist. Instead of forming traditional battle lines, the human ships scattered throughout the asteroid field, using the rocky debris as cover while preparing for hit-and-run attacks. Each ship would operate independently, striking fast and disappearing before the enemy could respond. ***. Captain Sarah Kim piloted her destroyer, the UES Thunderbolt, through a maze of spinning asteroids that would have challenged the best pilots in the galaxy. Her ship was built for speed and maneuverability, equipped with experimental engines that could change direction instantly without regard for the G-forces that would kill most alien crews. Humans had evolved on a high-gravity world, their bodies naturally resistant to the acceleration that space combat demanded. The battle began when Krog's patience expired. The Crimson Horde fleet moved toward the asteroid field in perfect formation, their weapons charging for a devastating first strike. They expected to find the human ships arranged in defensive positions, ready for a conventional engagement. Instead, they found empty space and floating rocks. The first human attack came from an impossible angle. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison's stealth fighter emerged from behind a massive asteroid, its hull coated with adaptive camouflage that made it nearly invisible to enemy sensors. His ship fired a spread of kinetic missiles at point-blank range. The projectiles accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. The Crimson Horde shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and conventional explosives, were useless against solid matter moving at relativistic velocities. Morrison's missiles punched through the enemy dreadnought's armor like bullets through paper, causing massive internal explosions that lit up the space around the dying ship. Before the Horde could respond, Morrison's fighter had disappeared back into the asteroid field, leaving them facing empty space and the wreckage of one of their most powerful vessels. War Marshal Krog roared in fury, ordering his fleet to pursue and destroy the human raiders. His ships broke formation, charging into the asteroid field after an enemy that seemed to vanish whenever they tried to engage. The humans had spent their entire evolution learning to hunt prey larger and stronger than themselves. They used tactics that had served them well against Earth's megafauna: patience, coordination, and the willingness to take risks that no sane creature would consider. Each human ship was a hunter, and the Crimson Horde had just entered their territory. Major Lisa Wong commanded a squadron of assault boats hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid. Her crews had spent hours carefully excavating the rock, creating a hidden base that looked like ordinary space debris to enemy sensors. When a group of Horde destroyers passed nearby, she launched her attack with devastating effect. 12 assault boats erupted from the asteroid simultaneously, their weapons already trained on critical enemy systems. They targeted engines, weapon mounts, and sensor arrays with surgical precision, crippling their targets before disappearing back into the debris field. The disabled Horde ships became sitting targets for follow-up attacks from other human units. Admiral Blake watched the battle unfold from his command ship, coordinating the chaos through quantum communication links that the enemy couldn't intercept. Each human captain was free to choose their own targets and tactics, adapting to changing conditions with the flexibility that had made humanity the dominant species on Earth. The Crimson Horde's superior technology meant nothing when they couldn't bring their weapons to bear on elusive targets. Their massive ships were designed for fleet engagements, not the three-dimensional chess game that space combat became among the asteroids. They found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to stand still, that struck from unexpected directions and vanished before retaliation was possible. War Marshal Krog realized he was facing something unprecedented in his experience. These humans fought like no species he had ever encountered, using tactics that seemed to ignore conventional military wisdom. They turned every disadvantage into an advantage, using the asteroid field as both cover and weapon. As human ships used gravitational slingshots around asteroids to achieve impossible velocities. As they coordinated attacks from multiple directions simultaneously, as they demonstrated the same relentless adaptability that had made them masters of Earth's hostile environment, Krog began to understand what he was truly facing. The humans weren't just another species with advanced technology. They were evolved predators, shaped by billions of years of survival on a world that killed the weak and rewarded the cunning. They brought to space combat the same ruthless creativity that had made them Earth's apex species. The tide of battle turned as more Crimson Horde ships fell to human ingenuity. Captain Martinez used her ship's mining lasers to destabilize asteroids, creating avalanches of debris that crushed enemy vessels. Commander Thompson's science ship released clouds of metallic chaff that confused enemy sensors, while human fighters struck from within the obscuring clouds. The most devastating attack came from Colonel David Park's engineering corps. His ships had spent the battle secretly attaching fusion charges to the largest asteroids in the field. When Krog ordered his remaining ships to regroup in what seemed like clear space, Park detonated his improvised minefield. The explosion was visible from the outer planets of the Zephyr system. Dozens of asteroids became expanding clouds of superheated plasma and debris, catching the Crimson Horde fleet in a trap of their own making. Ships that had survived human weapons fire were torn apart by rocks and metal fragments moving at hypervelocity speeds. War Marshal Krog watched in horror as his invincible fleet was systematically destroyed by an enemy that seemed to turn the laws of physics themselves into weapons. His own flagship was badly damaged, its shields failing as human fighters swarmed around it like insects attacking a giant. The final blow came from Admiral Blake himself. The UES Defiance emerged from behind Zephyr Prime's largest moon, its massive main guns already charged and targeted. Blake had been patient, letting his fleet create chaos while he maneuvered for the killing shot. His ship's weapons, designed to crack asteroids for mining operations, fired concentrated beams of exotic particles that punched through the Horde flagship's armor like tissue paper. As his ship died around him, Krog managed one final transmission to his surviving vessels. The order was simple: retreat. The Crimson Horde, which had never lost a battle, fled from the Zephyr system in disorder, leaving behind the wreckage of two-thirds of their mighty fleet. The humans had achieved the impossible, defeating a technologically superior enemy through tactics that no other species would have considered. They had fought like the Deathworld predators they were, turning every disadvantage into a weapon and every obstacle into an opportunity. As the last Crimson Horde ships disappeared into hyperspace, Admiral Blake opened a communication channel to Chief Scientist Arun Veltar. The Zephyrian's relief was overwhelming as he realized his people had been saved from extinction. The humans had traveled across the galaxy to help beings they had never met, asking nothing in return except a chance to do what was right. The aftermath of the battle brought together two species that could not have been more different. The Zephyrians were peaceful philosophers and scientists, while the humans were warriors shaped by their harsh homeworld. Yet they found common ground in their shared values of protection, cooperation, and the belief that civilization was worth defending. Chief Scientist Arun worked with Dr. Thompson to establish formal diplomatic relations between their peoples. The Zephyrians offered to share their advanced technology with Earth, while the humans promised to help defend Zephyrian space against future threats. It was the beginning of an alliance that would reshape the galaxy.as news of humanity's victory. Spread through hidden communication networks, other peaceful species began to take notice. The children of Earth had announced their presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible, proving that not all Deathworld species were conquerors like the Crimson Horde. Admiral Blake stood on his ship's observation deck, watching as Zephyrian rescue vessels emerged from their hiding places to begin the work of rebuilding their world. The crystal cities could be restored, the floating gardens replanted, the dead mourned and remembered. The Zephyrians would survive, and humanity had found its place among the stars as protectors of those who could not protect themselves. The battle for Zephyr Prime was over, but humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning. Earth's children had proven themselves worthy of the galaxy's respect, and the universe would never underestimate Deathworlders again.